Hey everyone, welcome back to Pucks and Brews. I'm your host, Michael Shade Sparacino, alongside, as always, Liam the Shellmaster Godimer. Today we got a very short snippet, an appetizer for the 2024 NHL trade deadline. First off, Liam, what's up, man?
I'm doing well. Shades, how you doing? It's good to be back. And NHL trade deadline shortly going to be upon us. And not a lot of things to talk about on this episode, but definitely a lot of foreshadowing that we may be able to do on what's going to be an exciting next few days in the NHL. So
Oh yeah, and I got my medium cold brew. I kind of, after thinking about it, probably should have gotten a small, but it's like 7 o'clock. Oh well, it's not like I was going to go to bed before 1 a.m. anyway.
I got my water. It is water.
Cheers, my good man.
Mm-hmm.
And as SpongeBob always says, pinky out.
Mm-hmm.
Ah. And well, before we get into the heat of the episode, I always forget to say this, at least in the beginning of every episode. Please like and share and subscribe and all that jazz. Follow us on our socials in the description below because I really do not mention that enough. And now that I've mentioned that, let's get right down to it, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start off with probably the biggest news that there's been. The New Jersey Devils have fired head coach Lindy Ruff after basically not getting any goaltending. And after he led them to a playoff appearance for the first time in, I believe, 6 seasons, they are no longer continuing with him as coach. He was relieved of his duties, and floor is yours.
I think it's a case of it's not Lindy's fault, but it was Lindy's problem, and Lindy could never figure out the problem with the Devils. And look, you could say it was goaltending, and a lot of it had to do with the goaltending situation. And General Manager Tom Fitzgerald never did fix that before firing Ruff. But you always hear people around the NHL and just people around sports say it, right? The general manager has one bullet to fire, and that is the head coach before he gets fired himself or she gets fired himself. So that's kind of the vibe, and yeah, it's kind of what I see from Tom Fitzgerald with this move. Um, look, the Devils have severely underperformed. They're young players. You could argue that there have been some playing time issues. Maybe not enough trust from head coach Ruff for players like Alexander Holtz and Simo Nemec specifically. And hey, look, they have Travis Green take over, who has NHL head coaching experience with the Vancouver Canucks. I think it was a move that Tom Fitzgerald had to make. But man, if the Devils don't figure it out before the regular season comes to a close, and they, miss out on the playoffs by a wide margin, Fitzgerald could be next.
Yes, and just speaking on the goaltending specifically, out of curiosity, I did in fact look up the goaltending stats yesterday before we did Chirp and Chat, and their highest save percentage on the season goes to Vitek Vanacek at what I believe was 897, and is currently on injured reserve. And the two guys that have stepped in, is it? I literally forgot to look at the backup. I literally read the names and forgot, but the two guys they have had step in have not performed any better. Nico Dawes and Akira Schmid have been posting slightly lower save percentages. I think they bottom out at 880. So you're not going to win a lot of games that way. But with that being said, it must be pointed out that the Devils currently do have more wins than both the Islanders by 4 and the Capitals by 2. And the Devils are in 6th currently in the Metro. So that is something to keep an eye on. But like you said, it's not necessarily Lindy Ruff's fault, but it was his problem because he was the is head coach of the team at this particular point in time, or at least was. And there's been talk about Jacob Markstrom opening back up for a trade possibility, but we will circle back to that at the end of the episode. And yeah, get rid of the loser point is basically my main argument here,
Yep.
but I digress. Moving on, we got some extensions to talk about. So the first big one is Elias Pettersson with the Vancouver Canucks after weeks of speculation that, holy crap, they might actually put him on the trade block. I wouldn't exactly say there was fire there, but there was smoke there, and some warranted smoke, because he repeatedly said he did not want to be in contract talks in the middle of the season. And after what happened several years back with the Islanders and, John Tavares, there's always going to be a little bit of fire to that smoke, but luckily this never really reached the point of desperation for them. And he re-signs with them for an 8-year extension worth $11.6 million a year, which is, I believe, the fifth highest contract in the league now, at least when it's going to kick in at this point in time, unless somebody else signs a higher value contract before that, before the offseason. But good move on them by keeping him.
Yeah, I mean, Elias Pettersson is a top five center in the league already. And that's not even talking about the potential that he has to, get better in the future. This is a superstar. And this is somebody, like you said, that Vancouver, for a little while there, it seemed like, wow, they might actually have some trouble re-signing this player. And what does Vancouver do? They don't get down that they're not able to negotiate with Pettersson during the season. They have, they focus on the hockey, you know, very well structured team with Rick Tocchet back behind the bench. You over exceed expectations. You're a Stanley Cup contender. And then you have the ownership and you have the front office believe in the group by going out, acquire a fellow Swede in Elias Lindholm, and really try to fortify this club for a championship run. And I think Pettersson looks at all of those things combined and says, you know what? Maybe I didn't want to negotiate in the regular season, but this is a place that I have a chance to win every single year for the remainder of my 8-year contract, and $11.5 million. I mean, that's outstanding. And it's one of those deals where maybe a slight overpay by Vancouver, but I can't even say that because Pettersson is so young and he's a center and the salary cap is going to go way up. So at the end of the day, I think it's a good deal for both sides, and good on the Canucks for getting it done. I mean, like you said, there was smoke and there was nobody who added to that smoke more than me right here on Pucks and Brews last episode. I said, you never know, Pettersson could get moved, and Vancouver takes all of that chatter that goes not only from myself, but everybody else around the hockey community and says, no, no, we're going to re-sign our superstar. And they do, to a contract that's both good for the player and the team. And those are the ones you love. So,
Exactly. Now, another player that re-signed in recent days was Thomas Novak of the Nashville Predators, who is, I believe, a second-year player who kind of really burst onto the scene last year. And he gets, I think, 3 years or 2 years at $3.5 million. And
three
Nashville is in a
years,
very 3 years. Okay.
3 years, $10.5 million total for Novak.
Thank you, sir. And the fuck was that?
That was an email coming through on my
That
end.
scared the shit out of me. Okay. Uh, but yeah, Nashville is in a very interesting position right now because not only are they in a playoff position in the West, they also arguably have the single worst forward group on paper, specifically. On the ice, they're in a playoff spot, so obviously they're massively exceeding expectations, but they have a lot of assets to work with, specifically with draft picks this year. I think if I remember correctly, they have 3 second rounders, 3 fourth rounders, and 2 third rounders, along with their first that they still have. So they have a lot of ammunition to work with. They can either buy, sell, they can make a long-term investment type move, aka trade UC Soros to get a young forward that they can build around. There's a lot they can do here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Barry Trotz has been aggressive, right? Since transitioning from head coach to general manager, and like you said, I think Nashville can really head in many different directions. They can either continue their rebuild and continue to go young, or they can trade their big fish, right? And UC Saros and see what assets they're able to get back. I mean, look, I work for the ECHL affiliate of the Nashville Predators and the Milwaukee Admirals, and I can tell you that Yaroslav Askarov might just be better than UC Saros, and it might not take him long. This guy, I think, is the best goaltending prospect in the league. If you look at all of the goaltending prospects in the AHL, I think Askarov is the closest. And if there's a time to trade UC Saros and build up your prospect pool, continue to get younger, and really bring yourself into that rebuild that Barry Trotz has kind of wanted to, yes, while bringing in Ryan O'Reilly and some veterans at the same time, he recognizes that this team's championship window is not open, and why not rebuild on the fly while you can? So yes, I would absolutely trade UC Saros. They re-signed Novak, like you said, 3 years, $10.5 million. Again, that's a young player that was playing in the AHL last year, and he has 34 points in 51 games in the NHL. So, outstanding stuff. Nashville's heading in the right direction, but I would be disappointed, to be quite honest with you, if they didn't trade UC Saros. And I would be surprised. With
All
the
I'm going to
goaltending
say,
the way it is, I mean, the Devils, I mean, look, right? If you're the Devils and you're Tom Fitzgerald and you call the Calgary Flames and asked what the asking price was going to be for Jacob Markstrom, and he tells you, okay, this is what it's going to be, shades. If you're Tom Fitzgerald, why wouldn't you call Barry Trotz in Nashville and say, you know what? They're asking me this. I'll throw this on top of this, on top of this, and you give me the best goaltender out on the market right now. Devils want to go and get themselves back in a playoff spot? Go call Barry Trotz.
yes, if if Markstrom
Just an
is
example. Just an example.
if Markstrom is indeed on the trade market, they're going to have two very good options to choose from. So all I'm going to say, and I must say before we move on, Andrew Brunette has got to be in contention for Coach of the Year with the forward group and the expectations that this team had going into the season. If he is not a finalist, that is a sham on the NHL.
The Predators know how to develop their prospects really,
Yep.
really well. And you look at some of those young guys over there, they're an up and coming team and they are going to be dangerous. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but if they trade UC Saros and Skarov comes in and becomes that number one, watch out. Watch out for the Prince.
Oh, 100%. This is going to be a very interesting team to keep an eye on over the next couple of years.
Agreed.
So, speaking of extensions, still, we got also announced earlier today, Zach Bogosian agrees to a 2-year contract extension with the Minnesota Wild. And the Wild are in a little bit of a weird period because the dead cap hits of Parise and Suter are finally starting to catch up with them. And kind of a down year for them. But I mean, stability on the back end, good locker room guy. I don't really have much else to say about this. Do you?
No, not much to be honest. I mean, just pretty much what you said. Good locker room guy, good deal. Sad
And
about it.
plus Stanley Cup champion.
Yes, never hurts.
Never does, but I have a feeling they're going to be bad again next year, but I digress.
You never know. NHL we year to year is odd, so things
Yeah,
change.
exactly. I mean, look at the Devils. We just spoke about them. Look at the Devils.
Right?
And last but not least, New York Rangers sign a 1-year extension for Jonathan Quick, 1.275 million. He earned it.
Yeah, you did. You 100% did. And it's another success story from Ben Waller, right?
Yeah.
A backup goaltender comes in. Jonathan Quick wasn't really playing much, right? In Vegas. Wasn't really playing much in LA even before that, or Vegas, I should say, in the playoff run. And then he comes to New York. You don't really know where his career is, where he's headed. I think if he had a couple of rough starts there in the beginning, it didn't go on that torrid start. Maybe he could have called it a career by the time we got close to the All-Star break. But the fact that he had such a great beginning, he's had just such a great year overall. He's been a great mentor to Igor Shesterkin. It's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Might be a
And
little pricey, but
less than
yeah,
1.3 million for a good
yeah.
backup goalie.
Oh, I thought you said 1.75. Okay,
No, no,
my
no,
bad.
no, no,
Yeah,
1.275.
totally fine. My bad.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a great value for the way he's played this season.
No, that is.
And might I add that him going on that torrid start to begin the season is pretty much the only reason the Rangers are in first place right now in the Metro.
It's true.
Like
True.
I said, I'm going to start and end with this statement. He earned it.
He did. He 100% earned it. Congratulations to Jonathan Quick. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, now we move on to some trades. So I'm just going to go in the order that I have them written down here. So Ilya Lyubushkin is a Leaf again in a 3-team. Was that the 3-team trade also? This was, well, I'm going to get back to another trade in a second. That is another 3-team trade that was way more complicated. But long story short, Ilya Lyubushkin is back on the Maple Leafs at 75% cap retention because for some reason the Carolina Hurricanes decided to take a sixth round pick this year from the Maple Leafs and just be like, here you go. I don't know what the Hurricanes were thinking, but Anaheim gets a 2025 third round pick, and also the Maple Leafs get the signing rights to Kirill Slepets. They added another defenseman who, in my opinion, is not going to move the needle for them, but this was kind of funny how Carolina's involved in this.
I would say it's never a bad thing to add depth, I suppose, especially for a team like the Leafs on the blue line. Many years that's been their crutch, right? So you bring in Lyubushkin, somebody who has a little bit of familiarity, and can bring that veteran leadership. So, hey, I don't think it's a bad move. I don't think it's a needle mover either. But yeah, it's just kind of how I see it. Not too much there.
Yeah, plus he also, he was on the team last season or the year before, I don't remember. So he has familiarity with the system. That's always a key as
Right.
well with bringing players in, especially in football. That's one major thing I've learned from watching football. Players who fit the system, they do exceed in that system. But I digress. Now moving on to the actual three-team trade that was so much more complicated than it appeared on the surface. And I'm just going to go based on the tweet from Sean Shapiro. Full Tanev trade, three-parter.
Okay.
Literally a three-part trade. Trade one, Devils trade unsigned draft choice goalie Cole Brady to the Flames in exchange for defenseman Chris Tanev. Furthermore, Flames have agreed to retain 50% of all future obligations to Tanev's contract for the 2023-2024 season. So trade one, goaltending prospect Cole Brady for 50% Chris Tanev. Trade two, the Devils trade unsigned draft choice. Oh, excuse me. The Devils trade defenseman Chris Tanev to the Dallas Stars in exchange for Dallas's own fourth round selection in 2026. Furthermore, the New Jersey Devils have agreed to retain 50% of all future obligations to Tanev's contract for the 2023-2024 season. So trade number two, Chris Tanev to the Dallas Stars in exchange for Dallas's own fourth round selection in 2026. The Devils get Chris Tanev at 50%. Trade three. I told you this was complicated. The Calgary Flames trade unsigned draft choice goaltender Cole Brady to the Dallas Stars in exchange for defenseman Artem Grushnikov, awesome name, Dallas's own second round selection in 2024 and a conditional third round selection in 2026, Dallas's own, if Dallas advances to the Stanley Cup final in the 2024 playoffs, aka, wins 3 rounds. If Dallas does not win 3 rounds in the 2024 playoffs, then no additional pick is transferred from Dallas to Calgary. So there's a very real chance that could be a third round pick going the other way. But to simplify this trade, just on the surface, after I went through all of that, because why would any team, make a simple 3-team trade? So basically, Chris Tanev goes from the Calgary Flames to the Dallas Stars at 75% cap retention, where the Devils hold the other 50% initially, and then the 25%. Jersey picks up a 2026 fourth round pick. Calgary picks up Artem Grushnikov, a 2024 second round pick, the conditional third in 2026, and the Stars get Chris Tanev and goalie prospect Cole Brady. So that was a mouthful.
Yeah, it was.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
I wasn't. Well, Dallas gets Chris Tanev. Okay.
Yes, that is the easy way to put this trade.
Gotcha. And where does Cole Brady go? He goes from New Jersey
From,
to
I'm not reading that whole thing again. Long story short, he ends
he
up
goes
in
from New
Dallas.
Jersey to it goes to Dallas.
He ends up in Dallas. Long
Okay.
story short.
Well, Cole Brady, fifth
Yeah,
round
Brady went from
the
the
Devils,
Devils to the Flames
and then from the
to the
Flames.
Stars.
Yes. Well, Tanev was the top defenseman on the market, and Dallas gets him. Good Stars team gets even better. That's just it. I mean, I think the Devils' role in this trade is minimal. Stars get another goaltending prospect. Okay. Draft picks moved around, prospects moved around. You have two teams, Devils less than the Flames, but you have a team in the Flames that is rebuilding, or that are rebuilding rather. And they're not going to mind acquiring the young assets and retaining salary in order to get better picks for
Yep.
players.
Yep. And Tanev, like you said, great addition to a great blue line that already features Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, Thomas Harley, Ryan Suter, Yanni Hakanpää. So a guy that, in my opinion, is going to fit very well in Dallas because he's a gritty player that can block shots.
Yep.
And like you said, I am going to repeat your sentiment. Great ad.
Great ad for sure. Complicated trade. Good ad.
Very complicated trade for no reason, but it wouldn't be the NHL trade deadline if there wasn't at least one. Am I right?
You are right.
Next up in the trade world, we got Kurtis MacDermid to from the New Jersey Devils, right? Yeah, no, to the New Jersey Devils from the Avalanche. The Devils acquire Kurtis MacDermid in exchange for the signing rights to Zakhar Bardakov and a 2024 seventh round pick. They're adding depth.
Yes, indeed. Physical depth forward. Good player for the playoffs. So
And Bardakov was a seventh round pick in 2021. So basically, two seventh round picks for Kurtis MacDermid. Nothing else to say there. We're not Devils fans.
sounds good.
And last but not least, a trade that you informed me about right before we started recording. The Vegas Golden Knights acquire Anthony Mantha at 50% salary cap retention from the Washington Capitals in exchange for a 2024 second round pick and a 2026 fourth round pick. So basically, I look at it as if you combine both of those picks, that's arguably either an early second or a late first had you traded back, if you had an original pick. So that's actually pretty decent value that Washington got back, and Mantha adds to an already stacked team. Yeah.
Yeah, Mantha is the type of forward that I think Vegas wanted, right? I think they don't have Mark Stone. I think they're looking for a power forward type winger to play alongside their top guys. I think Eichel and Mantha, they might be able to create some magic there. Maybe Stevenson. Mantha's a good two-way player too for a player with size. So I think, to only give up a second and a fourth if you're Vegas, that's a win. And that also allows you to perhaps spend other assets or resources to another team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're still firmly inside the Jake Gensel sweepstakes. And if you're Vegas and you walk out with Gensel and Mantha and Stone, who's lingering, right, might come off of the long-term injured reserve come playoff time. I don't know if there's any team
Cap
that
circumvention. I'm just kidding.
I don't know if there's any team that stops Vegas, right? I mean, if you add Mantha, Gensel, and you get Stone back in the playoffs,
Yeah, that team's going to be a wagon if that happens.
and I think that's kind of what they're banking on. But I will say this, I do believe Vegas when they say that Mark Stone's injury is rather serious. I mean, back problems do persist,
Yes,
um,
they do.
regardless of surgery. So I don't really think it's a player that they want to have out. And that they want to have uncertainty around. So a lot of people around the league are calling for cap circumvention. I'm not. And they're going to
No.
do everything in their power to acquire two really good wingers, and they've already got one. And they didn't give up a first round pick.
I'm going to keep this person nameless, but a lot of people know this and might know what I'm referring to. Somebody tweeted, it's not against the rules if the CBA allows it. And I'm just like, that is the most level-headed, valid point I have seen tweeted in a very long time.
True.
It is extremely true.
But I
But
don't think they're trying to take advantage. I
mm-mm.
don't. I would not be surprised if come playoff time Stone is not available, at least in the first round. So
Yeah, but on the surface, this is a pretty much a good trade for both teams.
yes, it is.
Yeah, can't argue with that one. And now, well, obviously, we're not going to go too in depth on this one because, like we said, it currently is Tuesday, March 5th at 7:44 p.m. And the trade deadline is on Friday at 3 p.m. So there's going to be 0 point in going on this whole big thing just for everything we say to be wrong in less than 3 days' time. So we're just going to touch on a couple teams as I finish off my cold brew. And I was going to bring this team up to begin with, or these two teams up to begin with, because we just talked about both of them, specifically one team and one player from the other team. But the Capitals finally look like they're tearing it down and going full rebuild with the trade of Mantha. And they got another couple other pieces that they can trade away at the deadline. But I'm actually kind of surprised they're still as in it as they are. But I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think them selling is the right move. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, the Capitals tear down all started last year at the trade deadline, to be honest, when they moved on from Dmitry Orlov, who arguably was one of the top defensemen in the league at the time. Traded away Garnet Hathaway as well, who was a fan favorite over to the Boston Bruins, two players in one trade. And I think for the Caps, it's all about getting younger, and Alex Ovechkin breaking the record. I think that's really all it is right now. And again, they're in the race, and it's impressive, and they have a lot of good young players that I like, to be honest. Dylan Strome is one of them. Hendrix Lapierre as well is a very good player. On the back end, you still have John Carlson. You have two pretty good goalies, and Charlie Lindgren, and Darcy Kemper as well. You have Kemper locked down, so you have stability in net. I think the coaching is pretty good in Spencer Carberry, so I think there's a future there. But I think no doubt about it, they're going to tear down here. And if they can make the playoffs and if they can make a run, I don't think that's something that they'd shy away from. But you have to move on from assets when you're able to, and that's kind of what I see out of Washington here.
100%. Speaking of teams who need to tear it down, the Penguins, like, guys, it's time. Stop hanging on to something that's not there.
The Penguins are in a different situation than the Caps, right? Because the Penguins kind of went all in on their core players. They signed Letang to a long-term deal, 6 years at the time, and that was only a couple years ago. Evgeny Malkin, same thing. You have Crosby locked up for another 5 years. Never a bad thing to have the best player in the world outside of Connor McDavid locked up for another 5 years plus. But again, I digress. You look in goal with Tristan Jarry, inconsistent, injury prone. You look behind the bench, Mike Sullivan might have spent a little bit too much time there. I think he's a very, very good coach, but I don't, really know where his future holds with the organization either. Uh, you know, Gensel, same thing. You have Eric Carlson, who is signed to an $11.5 million deal for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're in a real pickle. So you can just say tear it down, right? But how do you tear it down? If you're going to tear it down, I want all those guys I just mentioned off the team and to get assets. And right now, San Jose could barely get assets for Eric Carlson when he was a Norris Trophy winner candidate. Did he win the Norris? No, he didn't win the Norris. When he was a Norris Trophy candidate that year, right? Because of his cap hit. You think Pittsburgh's going to be able to get anything for him? Absolutely not. You know who's the one player they're going to be able to get assets for? Jake Gensel. And
Yep.
that's why on the trading market, and I think they are going to get a king's ransom, and that's a good start.
Yeah, 100%. In my opinion, he's the top winger on the market.
He is. It bites me that he's not in the that he's in the division. Because if he wasn't, I'd love the Rangers to go after him. But I don't see it in any scenario.
That would be a hefty price, but it's Jake Gensel.
Yeah. Oh, there was another thing I want to bring up to you, but we could save it, I
Oh, hold
guess.
on, I got some other players I want to mention.
Yeah, we were talking about the winger market, so let's see if
Oh yeah, no, don't worry, I'll get there.
we're heading in the same direction here. We'll see.
So there have been rumors going around, and I use that word lightly, of Rangers reuniting with several players. The names that have been brought up are one, Vladimir Tarasenko, two, Pavel Buchnevich, and three, Frank Vetrano. Let me just put this out there that if they bring any of them back, I would be happy because I like all three players. They've been on the team. Obviously, they would be welcome back with open arms, and you know, they were actually productive when they were here. So in that aspect, I would enjoy a reunion. I would be kind of scared to see what the trade package would look like in terms of real, like being realistic. We're not going to be able to retain Cap with Tarasenko, so that's not looking likely. Vetrano's asking price might be a tad high, but I think that would be a little bit more realistic than Tarasenko. And Buchnevich might be the most unrealistic in terms of what we would need to give up because he will not be a 1 year rental, and he is also developed into a point per game winger, something that Frank Vatrano is not. Go ahead.
Alex Tuck.
I did hear his name mentioned as well. That would be a great ad as well.
I don't think Buffalo would give him up because he's from the area and he's one of the few players that wants to be in Buffalo. But if I'm the Rangers, Alex Tuck.
Another player I've heard about is Alexander Wenberg.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wenberg is a defensive center. I mean, undersized defensive center, but he can win faceoffs, and that helps you in the playoffs. I wouldn't
Hey,
hate it. It would
all I'm
depend
going to say is
on the price.
Jonathan Marchessault, undersized player, quotes, won the Conn Smythe last year.
Not the same player as Wenberg, but yeah.
Not even close.
But Wenberg is look, I think he would be a good ad. But I think there would be a cap on kind of the value that I would give up for the player. And I think a lot of people around the Rangers have said this, right? That the Kraken have a great analytics department and they know their prospects and they're a tough trading partner, essentially. And you might have to give up a little bit more than you'd be willing to bite off when it comes to a player like Wenberg. And if it comes to that, then maybe I want to talk about a player like Yanni Gourde instead. But I digress. We'll see. I think Chris Drury has a lot of options, and I'm happy to hear that he at least inquired on a player like Alex Tuck. It just goes to show that he's getting creative with it. And if he's going to give up one of his big assets like Capo Caco, it's not going to be for Frank Vetrano. It's going to be for a player like Tuck, who is multidimensional, can add a lot of different things to your team.
Yeah, 100%. If he moves Kako for a 1 year rental, I might punch a wall. But one more player that I saw earlier today that was being kept out of the game for a possible trade on the horizon was on the Arizona Coyotes, Jason Zucker.
Yeah, I could
Now,
see it, to be honest.
yeah, that's an interesting one because he's been a little bit of a productive player for several years now. So they have a lot of decent to good guys that are realistic, and we just mentioned them. Zucker, Wenberg. I don't know how realistic Buchnevich would be, but Vetrano and Tarasenko, I think, could be very realistic because we do have our first and second round picks. No third round pick, which could cause a little bit of an issue with a Wenberg trade, but we shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. Again, Drury can go in a number of different directions. And for me, I think you need to address top line right wing and third line center wouldn't be bad either if the price is right. And that's the big thing. A second round pick and a mid-level prospect for me if I'm looking at Wenberg.
Oh, that would probably shy me away a little bit for a bottom six forward because I still have PTSD from one player we got great value for in a trade at the time, and then we gave him a terrible contract. But I digress.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see indeed. But this is going to be a very fun Friday. We're recording on Friday, we're not it's not going to be a live show, but I'll recording Friday. We'll see if I can get the episode out Friday afternoon, or might have to wait until Saturday, but we're definitely recording one. And right before we record Pucks and Brews on Friday, we're doing a live chirp and chat. So I'm going to be
You're
literally,
going to be ready to go.
I'm going to be hyped up on caffeine, and I'm still, for some reason, going to get another cold brew, and I'm just going to be on here going,
Love it.
yeah. So Friday's going to be fun.
Can't
Friday's
wait.
going to be fun. So you got anything else before we sign off here?
I got nothing.
All right, that was our little teaser of an episode for Friday. Definitely some interesting players to keep an eye on, and I'm just hoping that Chris Drury does not pull just some insanely stupid move where he overpays for the wrong player. I'm hoping and praying.
It won't happen.
Let's hope not. because I've
So,
seen some bad trades before. Eric Stahl.
yeah,
I have nothing against Eric Stahl as the person. That was just a bad trade. Bad trade, bad time.
tough one, tough one.
Yeah. But that was 8 years ago, so I'm over it. But yeah, this has been Pucks and Brews, episode number 55. I've been your host, Michael Shade Sparacino, alongside Liam, the Chill Master Gottimer. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, where I remembered this time, follow us on all of our socials down below. Like, share, subscribe, especially on the YouTube channel. Helps us a lot. And it would just mean a lot because I actually do care about this podcast quite a bit. I don't just do it just to do it.
Me too. Me too.
So enjoy, everyone.
Shades, real quick, before you go, I'm going to AEW tomorrow and Thursday, and I'm filling in as a seat filler at Gas South Arena. I want to tell you before I logged off. So we will text back and forth about it, but yeah, I'm going to be a seat filler tomorrow for Dynamite and Thursday for Rampage and Collision, or
All right.
Wednesday.
Well, I'm ending it. I'm ending it on that.